A lot has been done today to get this day together, so I'm going to take a minute to brag on my girls in my Wednesday night class because they've worked really hard on this. All the decorations, they're responsible for all this. So with the help of lots of mamas and grandmamas and cousins and husbands and everybody else, we've got a great group here at Fairview, and we're honored that you've joined us today. So let's see if I can get this clicker thing to work. Oh, look, there it works. Okay. So my title of my lesson today is Your Apple Poisonous? And like Courtney talked about earlier today, we're kind of basing the theme around Snow White, and everybody's familiar with that story. She kind of led up to the perfect part of the story because I kind of get the apple part. So what happened with the apple in Snow White? Was it a good or a bad thing? Bad, right? And it all depends on how we use our apples, whether it's a good or a bad thing. If you have an apple that doesn't contain poison, it's a good thing to eat an apple a day, right? Well, I'm going to be talking about a different kind of apple today. Everybody, how many of you in here have an iPad or a computer or some kind of tablet? Not all of them are Apple brands, but the apple I'm going to be discussing today is about our computers and social media. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So like Beth said, my name's Mary Lauren. I teach the teenage class here today. Here at Fairview on Wednesday nights, and these are my kids and my husband, my kids we have so far. These pictures are old, but they're some of my favorites. So, all right, so enough about me. Let's get to the point. Today I was asked to speak about social media. The title, Is Your Apple Poisonous? Alludes to how we are using our Apples or Dells or whatever brand of computer or electronic device you may be using. And are we using it for good or are we using it for bad? So what is social media? It's a technical term, and it's been around long enough that Merriam-Webster now has a definition for it. And the official definition is here. It's a form of communication through which users create online communities. They share information, ideas, personal messages, and other content. The possibilities are endless now. And as Christians, we have to carefully consider how we communicate online. What information should we or shouldn't we be sharing or posting or liking or tweeting or whatever else you may be doing? And what is not appropriate? I thought this was appropriate for some of us who remember life before Facebook. And some of this stuff, it is unreal to me how many different sites there are now. And I'm sure the younger ones can even add to the list. But this is a telephone, and this is a piece of paper. But anyway. Okay, so these were some that I looked up. Like I said, some of them I've never heard of before. But Facebook, I have found, is the most popular one statistically. How many people in here have Facebook? So a vast majority of people. And then what about Twitter? And I think LinkedIn, from what I understand, is more professionally oriented for businesses and things like that. But Pinterest birthday parties, whoa, I have a 4-year-old, and it's like we have to have a Disney World every time we have a birthday party. So anyway, according to the Academy of Pediatrics, an article in their journal entitled The Impact of Social Media on Children, Adolescents, and Families, 22% of teenagers log on to their favorite social media site, fill in the blank, whatever you use, more than 10 times a day. And more than half of adolescents log on to social media site at least once or more a day. And these statistics are from April 2011, so I'm pretty sure if they had done this back last year in 2015, that it would be much higher than that. I was surprised 22%. I think it's much higher than that now. But anyway, anybody ever felt this way? In our day and age, a lot of communication between friends happens through social media. How many of you today have friends in another city that you may see once a year, but you can talk to them every day on Facebook? I have friends from college that I don't see anymore that have kids now that I can keep up with because I'm like, oh, I saw you on Facebook, whatever. Communication is just different now than it used to be. Think about back in Bible times. How did people communicate then? Either by word of mouth, people used to talk to each other, or they'd send letters. Look at the New Testament. It's full of epistles, letters that were written from, a lot of more from Paul to different churches, but people used to write letters. Well, time, you can fast forward through time and you've got Morse code, or they used to the little thing, and then telephones, and it advanced to several other things. But think about now how we can communicate. People send emails. In 2 seconds, if I need to tell my boss something who has learned to email. I can send him something, and seconds later, he can read it, right? It's immediate. So it's a very powerful tool the way we communicate now, and we have to be careful as Christians what we do with that powerful tool. And today, I want to break down specifically how social media and how we use it is specific to our Christian walk. So we're going to talk about some of the positives of social media and the negatives, and then some social etiquette on using social media, and then the impact it has on our lives and other people as well. And because I want to end on a positive note, I want to go ahead and get all the negative stuff out of the way. So some of the negatives, the first one is don't be a virtual busybody. Anybody ever seen a bee just laying down, chilling out, taking their time? No, they're always busy, right? They're always into something. Bees are typically doing what they should be doing or they wouldn't survive, but a busybody is something different. If you have your Bibles, turn to 1 Timothy chapter 5, verse 13. And you can highlight or underline this verse. This is a good reminder of how we shouldn't act. And a lot of these things, all this stuff today I'm talking about applies specifically to social media, but it's good for your day-to-day life too. But we're talking specifically to social media. The Apostle Paul here is talking about how young widows who are not making themselves useful, they're doing these things that are listed above. They're not putting their time to good use, but instead waste their time in other people's business and stirring up trouble. He says they are idle, tattlers, and busybodies. And these are certainly not positive attributes. So what does that mean in reference to social media? How can you be a busybody on social media? Well, these are all some of the examples that I've witnessed, and I'm sure we could add to the list. But they stand out to me as the behavior of a busybody. Something a lot of people like to do is jump on the bandwagon of spreading gossip or rumors that they've heard about others, particularly celebrities. Everybody has that certain famous person that they love to hate. Have you ever heard that term? And, this week so-and-so cheated on his wife. This week so-and-so was caught driving drunk. There's all kinds of negative things that we could talk about. People just thrive on that. Well, on social media, what do we do when we see an article about Joe Schmo that cheated on his wife? Like, share. Like, share. Now, can I see something that you liked? I can, right? You can click on the little list and it shows you everybody that liked that, whatever, that article. Is this something that God wants us to put our focus on? Probably not. So, also, many people post about their own personal problems or the problems of people they know that have no place being in the public eye. A lot of times this just adds fuel to the fire, and instead of being a peacemaker, we can turn into a busybody who likes to stir up trouble. And even if that's not your intention, when if somebody's having something personal go on in their lives and then you post it on social media or something about it, that's probably not a productive way, to be helping that person. Also, a busybody is someone who likes to bring the worst of others to the spotlight rather than magnify their better qualities. I see a lot of those. Have y'all been standing in line at Walmart and see the tabloids where they've got the close-ups of the celebrities in a bathing suit and they've gained 50 pounds and like, oh, look at so-and-so now. She looks terrible. Well, we as ordinary people, just like Courtney was talking about earlier, Hollywood has an image of beauty. And we, a lot of times subconsciously, that's our view of what beauty is. So when one of them is displayed in a bad light, that little something inside of you wants to go, oh, look, they're ugly too. That's also not Christian behavior. We shouldn't want other people to be ugly. It makes me sad to see public posts of people making fun of someone else or criticizing someone, whether you know them or not. It's just hurtful. Okay, another verse that talks about how not to be a busybody. 1 Thessalonians 4:11 says, "And that you study to be quiet and to do your own business and to work with your own hands as we commanded you." Here the Apostle Paul is encouraging the Christians at Thessalonica to basically mind their own business and to have a quiet manner. They were not to be getting into each other's business and stirring up trouble. Now, there are times in our lives when we're going to need to get in other people's business, but we have to do it the right way. And most of the time, social media is not the way to do it. We're told to go to someone if we have a problem with them. That doesn't mean, and you can do that by means of Facebook or Twitter or whatever if you're not geographically close enough to do that. There's private messages. There's things that you can do that the whole world doesn't see about. But, you have to do it in the appropriate way. This is kind of how it can feel in real life if you're being negative to somebody else. I never really understood the whole poke thing. Anybody get poked on Facebook? Anyway. Okay. So the second thing I want to talk about, it's similar to being a busybody, but this is stirring up strife among brethren. We always want to avoid stirring up strife amongst our brethren. Now, who qualifies as brethren? We don't want to stir up strife with anybody, but this is in particular our Christian brothers and sisters, okay? Strife is defined by Webster as very angry or violent disagreement between two groups. I love the ESV translation of Proverbs 17:14. It says, the beginning of strife is like letting out water, so quit before the quarrel breaks out. Basically, it means you're better off to stop while you're ahead, right? It's difficult to stop water from spilling once it's started. Anybody ever spilled some water on the table or a glass of milk or something? You can't just reach out and grab it back real fast or, catch it in your hands. It's messy. It's not something you can take back quickly. Once it's flowing, it's flowing. Well, oftentimes, it's the same with strife. Once you stir up trouble, you can't just take it right back. It's out there. It's done. And on social media, I see examples of this when people are discussing politics or social topics. Seems to be the hot, if you know that somebody disagrees with you about something, but you're going to post it almost directed at them, you're stirring up strife. Now, is it okay to have political discussions with people? Absolutely. How else are we going to let people know that we don't support abortion and we don't support homosexuality? You have to have those conversations. But if you're doing it just to kind of get under somebody's skin or you're going to offend them, that's called stirring up strife, and that's not okay. In Titus, we are warned that such strife and contention is unprofitable and vain or empty. It's just useless. So just don't do it. If you find yourself in a discussion about something controversial or that could end in anger, always remember to speak lovingly and humbly. I know I always respond better to somebody who's speaking to me in love or out of humility, and other people are the same way. So you can have those conversations, but is it easy to read somebody's tone or their facial expressions when you're posting it on Facebook? No, it's not. It's black and white. It's words on a page. So it's very difficult to convey love in that way. You can come across as, stirring up strife. So we should never try to be attacking someone. All right, here's a couple of points to help avoid yourself from stirring up strife on social media. If you're angry, don't post anything. Just step away. It's the same way when you're angry in real life. Take a deep breath, remove yourself from the situation, and think before you speak, right? Well, it's the same on social media. Proverbs teaches us that a person who is able to hold his tongue keeps his life. But someone who doesn't show self-control by holding his tongue, or in this case, taking his fingers off the keyboard, always causes destruction. Also, if you're trying to make somebody else angry, like we were just talking about, Proverbs tells us without sugarcoating it that we're wicked and naughty. Frowardness, like he talks about here in Proverbs 6:12 through 14, which is a very difficult word to say, by the way. Frowardness means someone who's constantly disposed to disobedience and opposition. It's somebody always looking to pick a fight. Don't be that person on social media. Okay, so here's a big one. Everybody, take a breath. Spending too much time on social media. All right, so let's do a little self-evaluation. I want everybody to think about yourself right now. Don't think about the person next to you or the person in your mind that you're like, they are always on their phone, scrolling. No. Let's think about Matthew chapter 7, verse 5 that says, thou hypocrite, first cast out the beam out of your own eye, and then you'll see clearly to cast the mote out of your brother's eye. So for those of you that don't have social media, this will be very easy for you. But for all of us who do have Facebook or Twitter or whatever it is, think about what sites you use and how often you get on it. Is it once a day, twice a day, once an hour? Just be honest with yourself. If you're eating dinner with your family at a restaurant, do you have your phone out? If you're in church, do you log on to your social media site of choice? If the preacher is trying to present a lesson, or if maybe communion's being passed, or maybe we're in a song like we've done here today, are you skimming through your phone? Just think to yourself, nobody raise your hand. And think, am I supposed to be doing this, or am I supposed to be engaged in worship right now? And that's the same for Bible classes, Sunday school class, Wednesday night class. If you're a faithful member in your attendance, you should be attending in mind and body, and that means putting your phone away. So I don't Want to leave mamas and grandmamas out here because I'm in that, not grandmama, I'm in the mama club. How often do you have to ask your children or spouses or whoever you're in the room with, what'd you say? Because they were talking to you, but you had your phone out, maybe looking on Pinterest, doing whatever, and you're only kind of halfway listening to them. How often? I've done it. I've done it. I've been guilty of that. My 4-year-old is real quick to tell me when I need to be paying attention to him. My point is, we can become easily caught up in the virtual reality of social media and forget where we're supposed to be in our real life situations. Since agreeing to present this lesson, I've made it a personal goal to be more present in my life and to put my phone up and step away from the computer more, although I had to put this PowerPoint together, and that took a little time at my computer. So what does the Bible say about using our time wisely? It actually has a lot to say about using our time wisely. None of us knows how much longer we'll be here. Psalm 90 tells us to number our days. That means each one of us is going to be here for a specific amount of days on this earth, and then we're gone, physically. We're supposed to be aware that each day we wake up very well may be our last. And I don't want to sound morbid either, but working in healthcare, that's true. I mean, sickness knows no prejudice in age. I mean, I've unfortunately dealt with deaths in newborns through 99 to 100 years old, and no one escapes death. Unless Jesus comes while we're alive, we're all going to die physically. So if we keep this in mind, we will want to be more productive with the time that we have here. Colossians 4:5 tells us to walk in wisdom toward those that are without, redeeming the time, which means making good use of our time. And in 2 Corinthians, we read of another very important point. If we constantly keep our mind on things eternal, like things like heaven and hell, God and the devil, and we keep in mind that one day we'll be spending eternity in one of those places with one of those beings, we will choose to make better use of our time. As Christians, we can know that we are spending eternity in heaven if we are obedient to His will. Part of being obedient is making good use of our time by doing what God tells us to do. If we remain vigilant and conscious of the fact that our time on earth is limited, we can better manage our time, including the time we spend on social media. After contemplating eternity, Facebook and Twitter seem kind of insignificant, don't they? So that's the whole point, is keeping it in mind that, we don't have a lot of time here. Is it really that important to see what everybody's status is on Facebook? No, we don't have that much time. So we got to keep that in mind. Okay, number 4. If thy computer offend thee, cut it off. I wouldn't recommend using scissors. So how do the actions of others affect you on social media? If you find yourself dwelling on the negative things that others are posting, you're in danger. If you find yourself enjoying the gossip, or maybe you find the articles about fornication and lust interesting that people are posting, you're in trouble. You see, the Bible warns us that whatever things you allow your ears to hear, whatever things you allow your eyes to read or see, those things stick with you. Y'all know the Cradle Roll song, "Oh, be careful, little eyes, what you see." Yeah. Social media, you have to see it with your eyes, right? Well, once you've been exposed to those things and once the seed has been planted, the damage has been done. You can't undo those things. Proverbs says that whatever we think about makes up who we are. Have you ever considered what that means? That means that if you are reading a post about somebody who last week was bragging on Facebook because they were late for work 2 days in a row because they threw such awesome parties the night before that they were hungover and they slept late. And so, they're just posting about their activity. Well, maybe the next week they post, "Oh man, I'm really in a tight spot. I lost my job." Well, what do you think about somebody who was late for work 3 times last week because they were hungover and then they lost their job the next week? You're instinctively going to go, serves you right, right? That's not really a positive thing to be thinking. Did they deserve to lose their job? Maybe. But they, just by posting their activities and their thoughts, affect how you thought about them. Does that make sense? So you just being aware of their personal life, if they post too much that makes you think negative things, if they're doing too many things that make you want to cringe, they don't need to be on your friend list. Unfollow, unfriend, whatever you need to do, remove them from your life in virtual life so that you don't produce these emotions from yourself. Excuse me. Choose your friends on social media wisely. Every site has the option to decline or delete requests. If that person affects you in a negative way, it's your job to protect yourself and remove yourself from that situation. We do the same thing in real life, don't we? If we know certain people we surround ourselves with are bad influences on us and are going to encourage us to do bad things, then we choose not to hang out with those people, right? Does that mean we stop praying for them? No. Does that mean that we ever stop hoping that they're going to become closer to Christ? No. But we protect our hearts, right? We're supposed to guard our hearts. And so we do the same thing in real life that we do in virtual reality. Social media is just as dangerous to our souls as real life is if you let it be. All right. Negative number 5. The appearance of evil. And this could be a whole 45-minute lesson in itself. But in reference to social media, as you may have noticed from the theme of this year's Purity Day, we are emphasizing appearances, physical and spiritual. We want to appear spiritually beautiful to our God and to other people. Social media is one of the quickest ways young women can destroy their reputation and give an appearance of being evil or ungodly to the world. When someone looks at my Facebook page or reads my blog on WordPress, I don't want them to have any doubt in their mind where I stand spiritually. As Christians, we have to be extremely careful when it comes to our appearance on social media, and here's why. Okay, this is kind of directed at my high schoolers and maybe college age people that are in here. Say you go out with some friends one weekend, and you end up at a party where there's drinking and dancing and who knows what else is going on. And maybe you didn't know this was going to be happening, maybe you did, but you're there. And maybe you fooled yourself by saying, I'll go, I just won't drink or dance, but regardless of the situation, you're there. Now the night progresses, and just like every event nowadays, what's everybody do? Pull out their phone. And what they do? Start taking pictures, maybe videoing. You know, there's nothing undocumented these days. So an hour later, whether you know that you're in these pictures or not, your picture is posted all over Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter, whatever it is, and everybody that has any of those social media sites sees your picture on there. And they see you in this place where you shouldn't be to begin with. And maybe somebody's in the corner holding a solo cup. Maybe there's a couple over here dancing. Maybe you're not doing either of these things. I hope not. But now everybody that has these social media sites can see it. So think about this. Anyone that sees that picture can only see that picture. They can't hear you explaining yourself. They don't know you weren't participating in some of those activities. They just know you're there. This is the appearance of evil. The old saying, a picture is worth 1,000 words, becomes pretty literal in this situation, except for you can't use those 1,000 words. This is the influence you have on other people when they see these pictures. As Christians, we are supposed to be ashamed of sinful behavior. We're not supposed to be proud of it. A good rule of thumb, if you wouldn't want to be caught in a picture doing something, you shouldn't be doing it at all. So if you are caught in a picture doing one of these things, please don't put it on Facebook. Please don't put it on social media for everybody else to see, because not only have you sinned yourself, you may be a stumbling block to somebody else. Or maybe one of your church members sees you in the picture and they're going to be very disappointed in you. It's a tough spot to be in, but 1 Thessalonians 5:22 says, abstain from all appearance of evil. This means get away from any appearance of evil. Don't give anybody the chance to doubt that you're doing something sinful. Ezra 9:6 and said, O my God, I am ashamed and blush to lift up my face to thee, my God. For our iniquities are increased over our head, and our trespasses grown up unto the heavens. This is an example of someone who's not proud that they've sinned. So don't post pictures on Facebook or social media of sinful behavior. You shouldn't be doing it to begin with, but especially don't put pictures of it up. So things to consider. While reviewing our pictures, we have to ask ourselves if our apparel is modest. Do you have pictures of yourself in a bathing suit on social media? How about tight-fitting clothing or tops that are too revealing? Or maybe you're just posing in a seductive manner. What message does this send to those who view the pictures? First of all, it can cause others to lust, which is a sin. It can also draw attention from predators, or you will get attention from boys who are not interested in you for the right reasons. Secondly, it makes us look conceited, or like we are overly concerned with our own appearance if we're posting these type of pictures. We are supposed to be concerned more with our spiritual beauty than with our physical beauty. Also, consider the things you like and share on social media. I'm whistling over there. Oftentimes, articles are riddled with profanity or worldly content that we have no business even reading, much less liking or sharing. And like I said before, if you read it and like it, other people can see that you read it and liked it. You have to be conscious of even that. I was so discouraged to see how many fellow sisters in Christ showed public excitement about Magic Mike and 50 Shades of Grey. I was so disheartened. And, those are just two examples that I can think of recently. But God doesn't want us reading or watching this material to begin with, much less sharing it on Facebook as if it's the best thing ever. So, but to go further than that and acknowledge it is worse. These are not the only two things, but they stood out most blatantly to me. And we are all guilty at one point or another of bringing shame to our Lord. The Bible tells us that we're all sinners. But by being more vigilant of our activities on social media, we can start focusing more on bringing Him glory than shame. Think about your personal page. Pick whatever media site you use and just think about it for a minute. If someone clicked on your name to check out your profile, would they see that you're different from the world? Are your interests godly or worldly? Are your posts uplifting or shameful? We should review our profiles often to keep them pleasing to God. Okay. Whew, that was rough. All right, the positive side. I like this better. All right, so the first positive I want to talk about is mission work or evangelism. Everybody open your Bibles to Matthew chapter 28, and we're going to read verses 18 through 20. While you're turning your Bibles to this passage, do any of you know what term or phrase has been given to this set of scriptures? The Great Commission. That's right. All right, so let's read these now. It said, "And Jesus came and spake unto them, saying, All power is given unto me in heaven and in earth. Go ye therefore and teach all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father and of the Son and of the Holy Ghost, teaching them to observe all things whatsoever I have commanded you. And lo, I am with you always, even unto the end of the world." So how do we apply the Great Commission to social media? Turn to 1 Corinthians chapter 10, verse 31. Paul tells us that whatever we do, we should do it to the glory of God. Well, social media is something that we do. We have to take action when we get on social media. So what can we do with social media? How many of you saw our Purity Day Facebook page? Okay, so a good show of hands. All right. How many of you saw the link to our flyer that somebody shared on Facebook or Twitter? I think it was on Twitter too. Okay. So some of you may be in this room today because someone chose to evangelize using Facebook. Now turn to Ephesians 5:15 through 16. I like the English Standard Version's translation of this verse too. It reads, "Look carefully then how you walk, not as unwise, but as wise, making the best use of time," which we talked about earlier, "because the days are evil." We should use all of our time wisely, even when we're using social media, and we should take advantage of every opportunity we are given to teach others about Christ. So positive number 2. I think these guys didn't hear about selfie sticks. Christian fellowship. Fellowship is the idea of joint participation, sharing, association, or partnership with someone. Christians share fellowship one with another in that we have a common goal of pleasing God and getting to heaven. Look around you right now. There's a lot of people in this room that have a common goal of getting to heaven, right? How many of those people raised their hands that they had Facebook? A lot, right? So when you leave here today, look up one of your new friends and add them on Facebook. This is Christian fellowship. We participate in fellowship when we spend time with fellow Christians, even outside of worship services and Bible studies. Purity days, church camps, youth activities all provide great opportunities for fellowship. But what about social media? Can we use the social media as a way to interact with our Christian brothers and sisters? Yes, we can. Of course, I love the lyrics to the song God's Family, and this is just the chorus, but it says, "And sometimes we laugh together, sometimes we cry, sometimes we share together heartaches and sighs, sometimes we dream together of how it will be when we all get to heaven, God's family." So fellowship means making it through this life together, no matter how good or bad things get. We stick by each other's side and we help each other through because we have the common goal of heaven. Social media is an avenue we can take to share news with fellow Christians, to ask for prayers, to offer support. There's a lot of fellowship that can be done if we just look for the opportunities. I was wondering why nobody was laughing. Okay. Well, sometimes we don't even talk to each other at church, but then we go home and get on Facebook, like, hey, how you doing? You know, whatever. Sometimes all of our communication is online, and I guess that's okay. Okay, so here's some Bible references for Christian fellowship. Romans 12:15, Hebrews 10:24 through 25, and Galatians 6:2. The verse in Hebrews, or that section in Hebrews, is pretty good contrast to the busy bee we talked about in our first slide. Instead of provoking each other to anger and negativity, we provoke each other to love and doing good works. Okay. So, social media as a study tool. Social media can actually help you grow spiritually if you know where to look. There are study groups available. If you want to get involved, there's several opportunities for that. This is a great way to have a more structured study, and it also allows for group discussions. And it's also helpful for me because I can glean from the knowledge of older and more experienced Christians than myself. And here's a few. I'll let y'all have a minute to write these down. One of the studies that I really enjoy is the Digging Deep study on Facebook. Cindy Cawley, I think, helped get this together, and it's for women only. All you have to do is put in a request to join the group, and it's a year-long study, but each month you do a different topic, and it's laid out. And I think they do a new one at PTP every year is when they start the new year off. And then these are some other websites, Apologetics Press. They've got a lot of good stuff for anybody with young kids that want some scientific evidence of why we believe what we believe. And then House to House, Heart to Heart. So check out any or all of these websites. They're great sites for scripturally sound study and materials. Okay. All right, number 4, encouragement and edification. Paul is teaching the Romans here in these 2 verses that as Christians, we're to look for opportunities to lift each other up. One of my favorite parts of being a Christian is spreading positivity and making others smile. We can utilize social media in a million ways to help build each other up. Think about telling your friends happy birthday or happy anniversary with social media. I love seeing pictures of family get-togethers and fun memories between friends, or some of my friends I can't see all the time. I love seeing their pictures. One of the best ways to encourage some of our shut-ins and elderly brothers and sisters is to interact with them on social media. Don't think just the youth group knows how to use Facebook, let me tell you. Think about often how often you see someone post their kids made straight A's, or simply post a Bible verse or a pretty picture with a note about it. We have a sweet lady here at Fairview that has a Facebook page, and I love and appreciate her so much because she only posts positive things. Most of her posts show appreciation or offer encouragement in one way or another. I won't mention names, but she knows who she is. So the next slide, what's going on with you? Encouragement by involvement. Social media gives us an avenue for getting to know each other better. Sometimes life is busy and we don't have a ton of time to fellowship with each other, but we can quickly see the highlight reel, is what I call it, so to speak, of our friends' lives via social media. Offer your congratulations when you see your friend got that job he or she's been wanting. Offer support for someone who has a sick family member. Encourage new Christians to keep it up. Comment on how great worship services were this week. Invite others to come to church. There's too many opportunities for encouragement and edification to list them all here, but you kind of get the point. I remember when I got married, that was a big deal. I could put married to Clay Doggett. Okay. Positive number 5. So social media is an opportunity to work in benevolence. Again, making the best use of our time. You may be asking yourself, how in the world can we use social media to do benevolence work? I bet you've seen multiple examples and didn't exactly equate them with benevolence work, but they are. How many of you have seen links to sites like GoFundMe, where you can set up accounts for people to donate for different causes? We've all seen those. That's benevolence work. I've seen them for people with various health conditions, for families who've lost loved ones, and even for couples who are trying to adopt children. I see almost daily someone asking for prayers for one thing or another. Sometimes you see that someone's home is burned and they need donations for clothing and other items. And I've also seen people posting pets that they've lost, and then everybody's familiar with Noah Chamberlain, everybody trying to find little Noah recently. That's benevolence work. You share that with each other because you love someone. These are all ways we can help, even if all we do is click a share button to make others aware of a situation. In the verses above, we can see that it's not just something nice we could do. As Christians, we are commanded to take opportunity to do good whenever we can. We should constantly be in the mindset of helping others. I know you've all heard the saying, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Well, if we're so busy encouraging each other and looking for opportunities to do good, not much time is left for the devil. Okay, so social media etiquette for Christians. Our last segment are some do's and don'ts for using social media. As with all facets of our life, we should put some thought into it before we decide to post, like, or share something. This will keep us from making some of those mistakes we can't easily take back. Also, we shouldn't make a habit out of complaining all the time. As we see in Philippians, we are to do all things without murmurings or disputings. This includes what we say and do on social media. Again, leave off the inappropriate pictures. If what you're posting will bring shame instead of glory to our Father, you shouldn't be doing it, much less posting it for the world to see. Something else I see a lot of that we haven't touched on yet are the vague comments some people make that aren't really directed at anybody specific, but leave everyone wondering who they're talking about. You know what I'm talking about? Those comments like, I just love it when someone you love hurts your feelings and then doesn't even care. It's specific enough to let everybody know that you're hurt and that somebody in your family hurt you, but you didn't call their name and you didn't go to that person specifically. Well, the Bible tells us in Matthew that this sort of behavior is not how we should deal with these situations. If you are upset about it enough to post it on social media, then it's important enough that you should go specifically to that person and try and work it out. If you're not willing to do that, it has no business being put out there on social media. You can read what the Bible says about that in Matthew 5:23 through 25. Okay. Using social media to handle your problems can be dangerous. I often see wives sharing articles about how real men treat their wives. That's okay if you tag your husband and say, thanks for being this kind of husband. But if you're doing this to degrade your husband and how he treats you, that's not helping anything. Get off the computer and work on your marriage. Go to marriage seminars, study the Bible together, whatever it is you need to do. But don't use social media to say whatever it is you need to be saying to your husband instead of the whole world. Also, we've already touched on this, but it's always a good rule to avoid gossiping online or offline. It never ends well for any party involved. Just take a look at James 3:6. It talks about the tongue, but I added the keyboard, can do a lot of damage. Next, don't be a hypocrite. Acting like a hypocrite does nothing but bring shame to yourself and to the Lord's church. None of us wants to be responsible for that. Don't sit in a pew on Sunday morning, Sunday night, and Wednesday night, and then post something worldly on social media. We're supposed to be godly and pure all the time, not just when we're at church. It's not difficult to spot a hypocrite. Lastly, always, always, always be kind. In your comments, replies, posts, picture comments, always use a kind and loving word. The danger about online communication is that the reader cannot hear your tone of voice or see your facial expression. So sometimes what we post can come across as harsh even when we don't intend it to be that way. I found this acronym, not that one, on a blog on WordPress about netiquette. It's another word used for etiquette in relationship to the net or internet. This acronym would be helpful for speech of any kind, but in reference to social media and online activity, it is especially useful. We should ask ourselves these questions before we post, share, tweet, or whatever we may be doing. If you can't answer yes to any or all of these 5 things, you should reconsider your decision to post it. Always remember to think before you speak or type in this case. So, T, is it true? Are Christians supposed to lie? That's pretty easy. My 4-year-old can say, no, Mama, I'm not supposed to lie. Is it helpful? Is it inspiring? Is it necessary? And is it kind? So keep those things in mind before you speak or post on social media. The THINK acronym is similar to biblical teachings. The Proverbs writer shows us that the righteous ponders how to answer or thinks about it before responding. We should fashion our own communication in this way. It's Proverbs 15:28. Okay, there's actually a book called Netiquette by a lady named Virginia Shea, and she encourages readers to always remember the human factor when using social media. It's easy to get caught up in feeling safe behind a computer screen. Sometimes being unable to see the person physically emboldens us to say and do things that we wouldn't normally in real life. It's a lot different standing up in front of a large crowd to speak than it is to be safe in the comfort of your own home, writing a blog for maybe the same amount of people to read, but maybe you're saying the same things, but it's a lot different saying it here than at your computer. The audience is the same, you just can't see them. Anytime we write a blog or share something on social media, we must remember that the impact of our words is still powerful. There's a human somewhere reading it that will still feel emotions, good and bad. We can't forget to remember the human. Okay, there we go. All right, so don't forget self-evaluation. One of the most important parts of being a faithful Christian is constant self-evaluation. We should do this in all aspects of our lives, constantly trying to improve ourselves any way that we can to please God. The Bible teaches just because you're baptized doesn't mean you're going to heaven. You have to be baptized and what? Remain faithful, right? So constant self-evaluation is how we keep ourselves faithful as Christians. The same applies to our social media activities. Find yourself an accountability partner, somebody you can trust and someone that'll give you an honest opinion. And count on this person to help keep your site Christian-like instead of worldly. Make sure that activity is pure and pleasing to God. So make sure this is somebody who's going to tell you that it's going to call you out. I can count on my sister to call me out if I'm doing something wrong. She'll say, Mary Lauren, straighten up. You're acting up. Get somebody like that to read over your site and say, yeah, it looks good. I'm proud of you. I'm proud to call you sister. So just remember that social media can be a very powerful tool if we let it. So an apple a day keeps the doctor away, or not. Depends on how you use it. All right, that's it. Thank you very much for your time.